All right, we're live. Hey everybody, this is Derek at the Peace Tech Lab, and we are here with Tom Nassr of Kricket, who's going to be demoing his in-development application for crowdsourcing aid for Syrian refugees. We've been talking with him for a few months, and Tom has very generously come into the lab to give us an in-person demonstration, which we'll be sharing with the team. So without further ado, Tom, you want to take it away?
Sure. Hey everybody, my name is Tom Nassr. I'm from operating a startup called Kricket.co out of Connecticut right now. This is demonstrating right here the live application at app.kricket.co. So what we have here is a single map of the world. If you were to go to this URL right now, you would see all of the identical content on the map. So this is it. And what we are allowing people to do, allowing individuals to do, is actually collaborate and contribute to this map. So yesterday when I was here, I tagged a heart and said showing support. And on this, you can share it, you can follow it, you can verify it. So you want to say, yes, this is true, or no, this is not true. So the way that it works is everyone's looking at the same map, and by contributing, you're tagging that button down at the bottom. And we created all of these icons to represent refugee-related activities. And we have, a couple hundred emojis that you could also use if those icons did not service your needs. And of course, you could take a photo as well. So let's say let me go over to one that I didn't tag. So I didn't tag this sign right here. Okay, so I'm going to follow this because I'm interested when people were to comment on that. Now, if anyone wants to actually go on that tag and comment on this here, if you go to app.kricket.co, you should see this tag on the map. And when you comment, that'll actually pop up right here in real time. The whole application is real time by default, so there's really no problems with that type of communication. So this is all well and good, and did you just okay? This is all well and good, and it works really well for this type of scenario. But what we ended up doing was outlining about 120 or so icons in the Middle East between Syria and Germany that are actually refugee camps. And this refugee camp was grabbed from the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. So all of this data was not gathered by us. We just imported it and placed it into the application. You'll see that it says expires in and then nothing after that. The way that the application is programmed is every tag would last for 24 hours. Because these have a much longer lifespan, we put them on indefinitely, and I actually forgot to take out the expires in for things that are staying there indefinitely. So this is good, but the real magic happens over here on the admin panel. So I'm going to go back over to us right here, and I'm going to go over to the admin side now. So the admins, you can see, this is the super admin, so we can see every tag on the map. But we can add other administrators under these types of user roles. So I can go ahead and add Peace Tech or the Red Cross or the UN or any other organization can actually place icons onto the map. And they can also upload their own icons. So here I'll just add a new, I don't want to add a new icon pack. I want to add a new icon. So we'll go over to the desktop and we'll grab the Peace Tech logo. It's the beauty of live demos. Boom, we just added this. So we can say Peace Tech, no exclamation point. And we'll save this. All right, so this icon is now in the server. So now when we go over to atmospheres, I'm going to scroll down to the heart and just repurpose the heart here. So showing support. So we can grab this, grab the icon, change it to the Peace Tech logo. And now we can say Peace Tech Labs lives here. Contact us at
What is it,
Just the
info?
base.
Yeah, info@peacetechlab.org.
There you go.
Not labs, just lab.
.org. Yeah, contact@peacetechlabs.org. Cool. So now I actually forgot to show you that all this happens again in real time. So I'll grab this. We can switch it, and it closes the window because of the glitch, but you can see that it updates on the map. We'll just put this back to the Peace Tech Lab logo. The one that doesn't get closed out is going to be my dots on top of it here.
And I still see from our demo the Innova Health Clinic
right
down the street from my house.
Yeah. So it said peacetechlabs.org. Reach out. And the second we go, there it is. So it is real time by default. And if someone were to comment on here and say, tell me more, boom, here it is, there and there. Everything is there. So, and we can schedule these posts on the map and make them live longer than 6 hours. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to bump this up to next year, which triggers the algorithm to erase the time, which is why it just says expiring.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of the time limit? Is it if it were an event and something that was only happening for a limited time?
It's for the user side. Mm-hmm. So if I'm a user and I'm just Joe Schmo from whatever country, and I say don't go this way, it's flooding. You don't want that there.
That data is only temporarily useful.
And they could choose, right?
At this point, they cannot choose the length. Right now, every tag that they do is 24 hours, but the option is definitely, yeah. Okay. I mean, one of the things that I really want to figure out through like this conversation and many more, I think, is what are the immediate next features that are necessary? Because there is so much potential on this side to have a collaborative network of organizations to be able to place icons onto the map and coordinate the distribution between organizations. Like that would be really good on the admin side. That has nothing to do with the user side. So from a user perspective, maybe verification was a question that I got a lot. What is verificating? Like how do we know that this is real? So that's one side of it. The other side of it could be users taking photos, right? And as they tag photos onto the map, it feeds into our website, and media organizations can actually purchase those photos for media outlets, and that money goes right to the refugee in their digital wallet. And then once they land wherever they're going to land, they can deposit that money into a bank. So there's like a lot of different ways to cut this, and this is sort of the most developed it could be without being skewed in one direction. So yeah, that's really it's a great point. So the other attributes of the application right now are around the tags. So these are all tags that I have made at some point, and these are the tags that I'm following. So you can actually just see the tags that you're following, and the general settings, just notifications for having actually getting shared or verification, follow, whatever, and the preferred language. So we do have support for all of these languages, and the way that it technically works is all of the tags on the map get translated once on the server and then served back up on the user side, so that all of these translations are happening to every tag on the map. So like we could switch over to Arabic. Now I can't verify whether or not this is actually saying all of the right things, but I can assure you that this is Arabic. So it's just been interesting to see, all the different languages up, because it's better. It's definitely not perfect, but it's way better than it just being in straight English or in whatever the native communicator is using.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. And just over here we have, I gotta make it smaller because it breaks on bigger screens, but yeah, we just have the rules. Everyone's looking at the same map, everyone can contribute, and by default, everyone is anonymous. And organizations can join, and this is just a mail to link, so it's actually gonna open up the email browser and send that. But yeah, this is pretty much it.
The organizations, are their posts anonymous, like their tags?
No, their posts are not. So that would be a thing where if you are one of these users, what we would have to do is have an icon for them, and then on the individual tag, it would show whatever the company or organization is on this tag to show that it is a verified post from an organization.
Gotcha.
So this is really impressive, and I like the like what you said earlier about trying to get it into the hands of people to like figure out what features are needed and what the demand actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's not so much the lab that is your target audience, right?
Right.
It's the people, the people trying to deliver aid to refugees, and then the refugees themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what are you planning in terms of outreach to those two separate groups? Because it does sound like there are two different campaigns there. Right?
Yeah. And they go really hand in hand, right? So the two organizations that we're working most closely with right now are United Rescues
Mm-hmm.
and Sea of Solidarity. So these two organizations have been very supportive of Kricket and sort of how they can be more involved with the application and in using it specifically for their work. So what they are very interested in is creating a new type of tag that actually has slightly different rules. So this is their dojo, right? Like this is where they operate most often is in these waters right on Lesbos Island.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to have a tag that automatically will tag the map every 15 minutes, updating the location of boats. So as boats come over from Turkey into Lesbos, they want an automatic tag showing the status, location, whatever of the boats, so that if and when there is a bad situation, they can see where the boat actually is. But not only that they can see, so that the Turkish Coast Guard, them, the Greek Coast Guard, whatever other aid organizations, the 50 that are on Lesbos Island, can all be updated at the same time.
Right.
Because right now, all of this is happening via WhatsApp chat groups.
Right.
And
That's not visual.
No, it's not. So one of the things that I heard from a refugee is that they were told from the smuggler, you open this app, take a screenshot of your current location, go to WhatsApp, and then upload your picture of your current location into WhatsApp. And that's great, but there's a better
couple
way
of steps that can be refined.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different parties that need to be aware of what's going on, and the communication lines between these organizations is not as strong as they could be.
Right.
And the communication line between the organizations and the individuals is next to non-existent. Right. It's like if you're a refugee or you're someone trying to communicate to Sea of Solidarity or to the UN or Red Cross or wherever, and you don't have a person representing that organization right in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
what's your line of communication? Email? Maybe? I don't know. I mean, just trying to do the research and find where all of these camps are stationed throughout Europe and throughout the Middle East, that's not easy. Like it's not in one spot. It's not there for everyone to see.
Right.
So there's a huge aggregating effort that needs to happen. And there are other aggregators out there trying to do similar things. But I think where the difference in what we're trying to do and what other organizations are trying to do is we're trying to create a communication medium that allows organizations to collaborate and allows individuals to help each other, and allows individuals and organizations to actually have all of the same data. Because all of these decisions that are being made is made really based on fragmented data, and silos of the Red Cross's database of whatever, and individuals' list of text messages and WhatsApp messages and Facebook groups that they're a part of. And when we pin information to geographic space, it inherently becomes more relevant for everyone who's around there. So this is really just a reorganization of the way that we're viewing information. And I think that it would fundamentally change the way that organizations and individuals operate in the humanitarian space.
When I'm talking to like other software developers, usually game developers, like they always tell me that their campaign starts with choosing a small market to test things out in, and then expanding it. So Justin Hefter, who also he was telling me about his app, and they initially tested it in Hong Kong, and then I think they also did another test in England. Not because those were their final markets, but because they were like cheaper test cases of like a broader market. Are you thinking of approaching it in a similar way at all, like focusing on Lesbos or focusing on like a single European community to like get everybody in one space to be using this app, and then by nature of like that experience growing it? Or are you looking for like everybody all at once? And if so, like what are the challenges you're facing?
I'm hedging in both ways. So there's three different types of use cases. There's one of focusing on Lesbos Island, which is going to require my presence at some point to go there and try to orchestrate that through the small partners that we already have, and that would be like a good location. But I think a better location would be an actual refugee camp, right? Because you have this concentration of people that are there semi-indefinitely and people coming through on a semi-regular basis. One of the applications that we were thinking of for this is simply showing what is in a refugee camp, right? This is where you can buy food. This is where you can buy clothes or whatever. Like this is where the Red Cross set up shop today, because that changes so frequently. So honing in on that.
And that's a defined audience too. That's
right,
like
very defined.
There's a lot of migration and motion, but a camp, like they are geographically bound, right? And people are coming and going, but at least there's some definition in terms of the audience, which I imagine is helpful in getting these things off the ground.
Definitely, right? Like this camp, the Zatari camp, is the one that I have a buddy who's actually going there and speaking to some of the organizers at the camp, and there's 60 organizations there. Right. It's a massive effort. There's 83,000 people. Right. I gotta plug in. There's 83,000 people, so it's not like a small operation. This is something that's going on and will continue to go on for a while. Right. And the other route is directly through an organization. So if you're an organization, my pitch to you would be that unfortunately you're in competition with everyone else that is trying to help the same people. Right. And unfortunately, all of these aid organizations are literally fighting over the same donor dollars. And it's almost a competition to see who can help the most people for the least amount of money in some way or another, right? And I've been to a couple nonprofit tech events, which is an oxymoron in and of itself, but it's almost like the aid organizations don't view each other as being on the same team. They view each other more as competitors. And from an aid organization standpoint, if you were able to transparently display and show the work that you're doing on a more real-time basis, I think it would make the decision much easier from a donor perspective to say, oh yeah, you have camps here, 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 and here, and you're getting, these selfies with the refugees and doing all this stuff, and like you can actually visually see that on the map with all of these other organizations. I think it's a huge competitive advantage for them because they'd be able to actually show on the ground, hey, we need your $100,000 because this camp right here just ran out of water because they have an inventory of water bottles being shown on here. Mm-hmm. That's a very compelling reason, and I think that would give them a huge advantage trying to get donor dollars from people like that. So if an organization were to be able to adopt Kricket and then have the admin set up where they can place icons onto the map. Oh, and I think this was the portion I didn't show on the admin is here, we'll go to Peace Tech. It actually placing these icons onto the map. See, we can go like this. We can moving it too far. Here we go. We're in Baltimore. We're over there. See, we can zoom all the way in here and show. Here we go. There's Washington. See it creeping up, and placing these icons onto the map so that aid organizations don't physically need to be on the ground. They can just take this little pin and put it wherever they want.
Right.
Which is really nice in comparison to what you would have to do from a user side. So
yeah, and like the focus on ease of use, definitely that makes sense, especially when you're talking about like on the refugee side, maybe not necessarily like incredibly technically complex. Like point and click is a requisite. And on the end of like the user experience, like I think the translation stuff is very impressive, frankly speaking. And I think we mentioned this before in our call. I've had so many bad experiences with automatic translation for Arabic. Like it is, Arabic has gotten better with services like Google and Microsoft Bing, but it's still terrible. And if you're like, sometimes it's not even proximate. If you're saying, hey, there's help over here, it's like.
It's probably the same for Russian too.
Right. Which, might be a challenge that you're facing in getting this out, like having an Arabic language interface, having content, being provided, or we're talking about users being a huge source of information for the app, like having some sort of feature in there like Google Translate does where like, how's this translation? Can you improve it? Might go a long way towards making something understandable. That's just me sharing my own experience because, at the lab we do a lot of data gathering through like at our events, we try to help people use technology, and usually these are not very high technology people, so you have to make the experience as simple as possible. And we started out having a survey where we asked basic questions about like, what services do you use? Yeah. And our local partner stopped us straight out and said, listen, you need to have a dedicated translator for this because in its basic form, you're not going to get the information that you want. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. So like, as I imagine that like the user experience is also a big component of development, or like something that you have to focus on. Do you have like a QA session with these communities where you say like, hey, or like, is that planned for? Is that the next?
Yeah, that really is. So like, I'd say the next. All right. So there's 3 people on the team right now. There's me. There is a developer who's way better than I am from France, and there is a woman from Atlanta who's on the board of directors for the IRC. So she's focusing on partnerships. I'm focusing on product. And Laurent from France is focusing on actually implementing whatever crazy thing that we can think of. So right now, with the 2 small partners we have, I'd really like to get a larger partner in a camp, because I think a camp use case is probably the strongest and most trafficked, right? Because if you have shop owners saying, this is what's for sale today, just like starting to get some sort of daily engagement there's going to be very clear things that are needed. But again, I think that's going to require my attention on the ground.
Right, and you're going to need resources for this sort of thing to make it happen.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. Because right now, this whole thing has been run by, nights and weekends and whatever I can parse out of my paycheck from the agency.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
not exactly moving at light speed. But I think that, sorry, back to the organization, as an organization standpoint, yes, it would be very good to show where assets are being allocated because you have no idea. And I think that if you had a Red Cross or a UN from a visual standpoint, actually placing stuff on the map, whether it's for disaster recovery, whether it's for refugees, whether it's for just fighting poverty, whatever, I think that you would have an inherent adoption from people that follow these organizations, from people that are actually interfacing with these organizations. If you say, the Katrina problem, it's flooding, there's all this stuff going on, you have people waiting for food, and you have trucks driving by.
Right.
That simply would not happen if they were to say, I'm here and I need help.
Yeah.
Two very basic things that right now are very difficult to do with only text.
Right. Right.
So
it's I think what you've done, and sorry for monopolizing this, is like incredible, because often, if like we've seen time and time again, whether it's like crisis mappers or the work that Patrick Meyer is doing with drones, like if you need to have people all on the same page, you build a map, because then it becomes very, very obvious where need is required and who is where, right? Like a map is some of the best way that we can get information across. And your focus on creating a map that specifically caters to the needs of people trying to deliver aid in like a timely temporal fashion, I think is so important. We're not talking about like a CartoDB, which requires like careful authoring and like an API. We're talking about something that should be in everybody's hand, just saying, hey, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
I've been trying, like, throughout this entire conversation, to think about the entry point, because I think you're right. Starting with a single place and then trying to get broad scale adoption in a community is the way to go. I mean, you are then building off the needs of a concrete program, a concrete set of people, as opposed to predicting them, right? You are getting a use case that you can then turn into like a narrative saying like, look at the case of what happened in this refugee camp in like X refugee camp in Lebanon, blah, blah, blah. You're turning that into like, that is media that you can turn into development,
absolutely.
Right? So I'm trying to think of a few that we could like introduce you to, and then you can make the case like, hey, we're building this app for you at no cost. Can you help us to like organize your camps better? And I think that's a compelling case to make.
Yeah.
Right. I reached out to a colleague of mine in UNICEF who's based in Erbil, Iraq, and he said, "Oh, I'll show this app to my colleagues, and I'll follow up with him and see what he thinks." But like maybe if there's a role for the lab to play, it's like keeping our ear to the ground for like people who could be this initial test case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually not like the people based in DC, but our contacts out in the field. You know?
Well, I think that's a whole nother discussion, right? Is back in DC or stateside, it's like this has an incredible implication for cultural integration. So we have our own refugees here. They are their own community.
True.
Where's the halal house? Where's the mosque? Where's all these things that they essentially need in the States? And they don't speak the language. They don't have access to the knowledge of where these things simply are. So like we've been working with this organization up here, Iris. I'm sure you've heard of them. They're pretty popular around. But the president of Iris is working on getting me more involved with the domestic effort for refugees and actually putting the places and resources that they hand out via paper, like on the map, just to show where these things are for the refugees. So I don't think that there is one right way to go.
Sure.
I think there's so many parallel ways that we need to investigate until one of them is just going to work, and I think it's going to be very random, which is why I've kind of been going to the Zaatari camp, or focusing in Beirut, or this Lesbos thing, or even domestically. It's like there's a lot of different ways to go. The point is that we need to find a leader in the space who's willing to say, yes, this is something that can and will benefit us much more than the other tools that we're trying to retrofit into this scenario. I mean, this is a tool built for this type of issue. So God bless you.
Thank you.
So I guess I'm thinking, like, to get that sort of key first organizational buy-in, like what things they will need. So it's definitely like this, but from an organization side, I think there is a need for almost like some APIs. So like if I'm an organization, I'm going to want to not just be able to put this information out to get it to the people I'm serving, but I'm going to want to be capturing so that I can do my after action reports. So like if they could get, I don't know what's possible on the back end, but like a daily update of everything that got logged in so that they can sort of say, here was where problems were reported, and here's how we responded, and like here's how we reduced, the need for food in that area over time. So they're going to want like a ability to see over time how their efforts move geographically and how they're moving in response to like geographic need and stuff like that. I think that would be a huge value to an organization.
Yeah.
Like M&E.
Yeah, and that's like not difficult to implement. It's like that hooking in an API. I mean, it's like already half built.
Right.
So it's
just like putting that into the pitch to the organization too. That like this is a geographic M&E tool.
Yeah. M&E.
Measurement and evaluation, or monitoring and evaluation. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I guess like similar to that too. Like, can they do an import of? Yeah. So if they have like 20 things already set up, they can just batch it.
I mean, if they have like an Excel. I would imagine a lot of them would have Excel sheets of just where all these people are, and they either have them by address or latitude, longitude, or whatever, and we can import that and populate. That's how we populated the map with all these. We just imported these GeoJSON objects, and we just applied this icon to all of them. So if you have an organization, you saw me just update that organization. Just pick your icon, and there you go, and we can just upload them all right there. But I think an automated reporting tool to say, this is the region that we're focusing on, these are the tags that popped up from users, this is how we dispense them, this is how the tags from users decreased over time, or increased over time, because there's going to be an increase for a period of time until we hit some saturation point where the need of doing that goes down. I'm concerned on a couple of fronts of the lens of NGOs, and we do. So let's say we do have an API, and I'm just being devil's advocate here, and we were able to say, this many tags happened, and we dispense this type of aid, and the tags keep growing. Because there's going to be a swell of people saying, oh yeah, there's just more users. I guess you could do it by percentage then. But I totally agree. I think that an API with some sort of automation for organizations would really be helpful.
Because they have to do this reporting, and I'm worried that a lot of them are just like an Excel sheet with long lat coordinates, and they're trying to visualize. But if it was an automated mapping thing, that'd be huge. I think, for a lot of organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm just thinking about all the efforts that are currently underway to try to unify refugee data, like in Iraq, for example. Like it used to be that everybody was collecting information and just keeping it internally, and there was no, like between the various huge aid organizations, there was no communication about like shared needs or shared data. So people were reinventing the wheel, going and like gathering information about the same people just over and over and over again. Huge waste of resources. And they're trying to get a little bit better about that. I think, oh God, what's the name of the Iraq displacement matrix? Who's running that? Iraq displacement matrix.
Oh, there's like a couple of really good sites out there that have.
Yeah, IOM. So IOM is trying to like be the centralized point there, but the need still exists. And I think what you're seeing is like people gathering information inside a camp, going to their own organization and like their umbrellas trying to communicate with each other. And what you want to see is inside a camp, that sort of information being shared, as well as like at the national or the organizational level.
Yeah.
So there certainly is a need for this information sharing. The question is, how do you tell people that this is one of the ways that those needs can be met, right?
Yeah, there's a huge fragmentation issue. And for me, I think the visibility and credibility of being affiliated with a peace tech type is essential. I mean, there's so many tools. Like I'm part of a couple different Slack groups. See if I can bring one up. TechFugees being one of them, right? And John Ellison actually sent me over a list. I mean, look at this. There's 534 people. Next to everybody has their own stuff. And John Ellison sent me over an Excel sheet or a Google Doc of 1,500 refugee tools.
Really?
Yeah, there's no shortage of tools.
Yeah,
People
holy
are
cow.
building them. You know, the problem is twofold. No one knows what each other's working on. There is incredible granularity with these tools. So like an Iraqi refugee would make a tool for how, an Iraqi's guide to living in Hungary or an Iraqi's guide to living in Budapest. And like that is the tool. It's only on Android and it only supports, Arabic. And that's the one tool. But there's, 50 more of them that do that same similar thing, but maybe for different group or whatever. And it's like just huge fragmentation and no visibility on this. So you have each individual person saying, hey, look at my app. It's like really good for Iraqis trying to get trying to get a driver's license or whatever in whatever country. So like there's not a coordinated effort, and I think TechFugees is trying to do that. But it's just so difficult. Like there's so many different parallel initiatives, and they're all attacking different problems and very granular problems. So even though you might now know how to get a driver's license, like you'll never use that app again. Right? It's just so fine. Yeah.
So what do you think the solution to that is? Is it having a public database? Is it having a spokesperson do a podcast a week on different apps? Like what, or is it necessarily a bad thing that people are it's diversifying?
Yeah, I mean, also, I guess what's important is the hypothetical app on how Iraqis can get driver's license. The question is it getting to the people who need it? Because I mean, I don't need that app, right?
Right.
So I guess it's not necessarily that everyone would need to know about it, but just the people who need it.
I think the bigger problem is that there's 3 to 50 people working on an app that helps Iraqis get a driver's license. Like that is the broader problem, and I think a root of that is there's not a location to just see that. There's no way that you're not searching. There's no leadership in the space. It's just a whole bunch of individuals that are contributing to nothing that's bringing them all together. And I think TechFugees is trying to do that. But like I said, they're I went to the conference in New York,
and a lot of it was like soft. It just wasn't, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do this. And somebody or an organization needs to say, this is the way we're going to go, or this is the direction I think we should all take. Mm-hmm. And then if there's pushback and collaboration and building, if no one says anything, there's not going to be anything to disagree with, and there's not going to be any, give and take and building. It's just a whole bunch of siloed efforts right now.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to be discouraging.
Right. You don't want to say, no, don't build that app. We already have 3 of them. Well, someone's going to say, well, I can do it better.
Yeah. How much better?
You can.
Well,
great.
Yeah.
No problem. Interesting. Have you talked to Allie Claire? I think she
No.
Where was the TechPG's event
New York.
hosted?
New York.
Where in New York? In NYU?
It was the one Sean was at, right?
Yes.
It's that
Civic
UN...
Hall.
Yeah,
Civic
but
Hall.
like, isn't it a UNHCR space?
I don't
It's
think
like
so.
a innovation lab UN was trying to fund or something.
I don't think the UN is affiliated with that group.
Okay.
It's called Civic Hall.
I don't know. I know they're hackerspace and stuff, but I've never heard the two mentioned in the same sentence.
Hive?
It used to be called Hive.
Okay, you said that.
It used to be the Hive at 55.
Huh. Yeah. Okay. So one of my colleagues, who runs an organization that is hooking up Syrian refugees with like tech jobs.
Mm-hmm.
She helped organize the Tech Refugees event. I thought she ran it, but she is in fact just like an administrator for it. Yeah, Allie Claire. If you have a list of people to talk to about this and the hope of getting into a specific refugee camp, she might be able to help there. I wonder, because it's a very specific community. She's looking at Syrian refugees in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe she's targeting individual camps. And she's a technologist. She has a technologist objective. And she might be, and like you guys are connected through TechUG, so she might be a very sympathetic ear to the cause. I don't know, maybe one of the asks that you can have is like, hey, as you're connecting with people in XYZ camps, can you connect me to other organizations there, and we can take it from there. I don't know.
Yeah.
She might be an interesting connection for you.
No, for sure.
Okay.
Actually, I think she sounds familiar.
She's an Aussie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How do you spell it?
ALICLARE. Allie Claire.
Doesn't look like she's there.
Is Allie short for something? Maybe she has the full name.
Probably Allison, maybe. I think I had trouble connecting with her as well, come to think of it.
Closest and collective?
Let's check that out.
Oh, is that Claire Allison?
Yeah, I think I had this
Closet
exact same
collective?
LinkedIn search when I ran through this. Anyway,
Yeah,
just another thought about another sympathetic ear. Well, unfortunately, I have to run as well, but again, I think this is pretty amazing, and I'm going to try to share this with my colleagues, our colleagues, and show it to the team. If you had an ask for the Peace Tech Lab, what would it be? Or are you just like trying to raise awareness of this?
No, definitely not just trying to raise awareness. I don't know. It's a combination of a couple things. It would be funding would be awesome. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yep.
I would have no problem with this being a Peace Tech umbrellaed initiative. I think that Peace Tech could use Kricket to do a lot more than I can alone. I'd say probably the biggest thing I could ask of Peace Tech is continued like brand support and just the connections, right? It's like I just need to talk to more of the right people, and I haven't met any of the right people yet.
Well, who is the right person?
I don't know.
Like an adopter?
Yeah, an organizer from a NGO who has the ability to say yes and is not like restricted by his or her job title. So that's a massive problem, because all the organizations and people that I talk to yes me to death, and then
right,
I don't go anywhere, and
you don't have anybody with.
No, it's another set of introductions, and that's not a bad thing. It's still like this line that I've been chasing, but like
that's how that works.
I've been going down, 30, 40 people deep. Somebody's gotta say yes at some point, right. Unless maybe I'm just nuts and this doesn't have the types of capabilities that I think it does.
No, I feel you. I mean, so to the various different requests, unfortunately, I wish we had funding. We are a startup ourselves, and we are constantly striving for funding. So while we can't be a direct supporter, because we are so constantly in outreach mode and looking for funding, like I put together a proposal for like the Internet Freedom Fund Foundation like last week. I personally will keep my eyes open for like even small innovation prizes that would no doubt be helpful, just at least to pay your programmer,
yeah.
You know what I mean, or yourself.
Seriously.
So on the funding side, I think that's about all we can do. I don't know, like I think if you have media, like if you ever show up in a story, the lab has a news roundup that we can get stories of Peace Tech being applied in the field out. And so please share with us anytime that you're put out in the news. And of course, like, I think, if we haven't mentioned you already on social media, like this should be our role. And I think we'd be happy to talk about like, hey, we spoke to Tom Nassr, CEO, this sort of thing. Unfortunately, well,
I was just gonna say similarly. I mean, again, it's just kind of like saying, okay, well, we can introduce you to these other people.
Right.
But I work on a lot of our events here, so just keeping you in the loop about those, whether it's for a speaking role or even just to attend in a networking capacity. I'd definitely keep you in my mind for that. I know it's probably not exactly what you're looking for,
right.
But
I'm afraid like the thing that we have are the connections, and I know it's frustrating because you're 40 deep.
Yeah, but like I say that jokingly. It's like it's not a big deal. It's just what I do. So
you have a whole bunch of meetings. Like
yeah,
you need adoption.
Yeah.
But we can try to make those. We can try to keep you in mind for these meetings that when we're talking to tech people in these camps.
I think this is a very clearly a different caliber of people that I've been talking to, right? It's like, this is kind of your space. This is sort of like the thing that you're trying to build a company off of too, so it makes a lot of sense. And like speaking, I would love to speak in whatever capacity to whatever group you think would be willing to listen.
Cool.
That would be a perfect excuse to come back next month. So
right now, I don't know of any events that we
actually no. In April, to hit your next month goal, we got a workshop on refugees. It's a little more academics than like funding organizations, but they're constantly looking for funding too. So like they know where to look.
We're all going together.
Yeah, but that's April 15th.
together.
It's like a day-long workshop thing.
Okay, April 15th.
I think it's a Friday.
Okay. Yeah, that might work out. I might like get you on the way back from Silicon. Something like that. That'd work out. But yeah, I have no problem talking to any sized crowd, doing demos like this, or whatever. That's fine with me.
Awesome.
So.
Okay, well, I think that's a good point to at least leave the tool time video.
Cool.
So thanks again for stepping in and demoing.
Yeah.
And
thank you for
All right.
having me. This has been awesome.
Quick question.